Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Educator Experience podcast. My name is Sally Carter, and today I am joined by Dr. Erin Sponaugle, who's a teacher, author, and a speaker. She's taught for 23 years and currently teaches visual art to students in grades 3 through 5 in Hedgesville, West Virginia, United States. Erin is a national board certified teacher and served as the 2014 West Virginia Teacher of the Year. She's the author, illustrator of The Adventures of Berkeley the Bear series and recently published Teachaholic, the 7-day mindset shift to conquer burnout, build life-changing boundaries, and reignite your love for teaching. She happens to be the host of the Next Chapter for Teachers podcast. She covers topics in education relevant to teachers that address the stressful issues that can kind of cloud the joy of what teaching is really meant to be, while offering hopeful strategies to streamline teaching and address conflicts that arise in the classroom. Today, in this episode, we're talking about burnout, what it's like to absolutely crash and burn and have to essentially reassess our priorities, our boundaries, potentially learn the word no, no to extra committees, no to extra marking at the end of the day. All of that in order to really reconnect with ourselves and our profession. We also touch on the process of being a TEDx speaker because she's recently had a talk just come out about burnout and resilience from the original application work and prep work, which I think is really interesting for other educators to hear because there are a lot of folks out there who might be interested in the process and want to share their own journeys on that stage as well. So we've included all of Erin's fabulous links in our show notes. So we invite you to check them out, support her in her journey. And without further ado, let's get to my conversation with Dr. Erin Sponaugle. Being an educator is one heck of a lonely journey, but every step holds a story, an experience that shapes how we teach, learn, and grow. Welcome to the Educator Experience. I'm your host, Sally Carter, and together we'll explore the moments that define us as educators. Through authentic conversations and shared experiences, we're building a community that connects, reflects, and inspires, all while breaking down barriers in education, one story at a time. You are not alone. Let's grow together. Well, Erin, thank you so much for joining us on the Educator Experience podcast. I'm so excited to have you here because, as I mentioned, I was just listening to or watching your TED Talk before. So I hope we get into that. But I'd love to
Thank
get to
you.
know a little bit about you first, your journey into teaching. Where did it all start?
My name is Erin. I am an art teacher in Hedgesville, West Virginia, and I have taught now for 23 years, 21 of which have been at the same school. I know that's almost unheard of anymore. Not only to have taught that long, but to remain in the same school for that long. And I'm proud of that. But it's also because we just have a really nice school community. A lot of us have known each other or been teaching together for several decades now, and we know each other very well, and we know the community and the people and our students very well. So it's a very nice place to be. And I'm happy that I've been able to be there the majority of my teaching career. I don't teach at the same school that I attended as a child, but I do teach in the same community or the same school district that I went to school in and have lived in my entire life. So I do actually know the area pretty well. But growing up, I didn't really intend to be a teacher. I liked to draw, I liked to write. I was very quiet. Something that I have spoken about previously on my own podcast or with groups of teachers is my journey through getting to conquer having anxiety attacks and dealing with
Mm,
that not only as a teacher, but just as a person. So being a teacher and being up in front of people wasn't really something that I was interested in pursuing growing up. When I started out in college, I was a journalism communications major. I kind of wanted to go the writing route as far as, doing investigative reporting. But in my freshman year of college, I really started to think about the impact that I wanted to have on people. My aunt had taught first grade for 35 years, and she had recently passed away, and I had been able to see the impact that her teaching career and the impact that she had had on her students. And it made me start thinking about what I wanted to do with my life. I mean, it started to become a little bit more real as a teenager, almost adult, what did I really want to do in my life? So I
Yeah.
changed my major to education, and there was some concern from the people who loved me in my life. Well, you don't really like to get up in front of people and talk, Erin. So, that's kind of a big part of being a teacher. Like they're little people, but you got to talk in front of little people all day long. It's basically a Broadway show without any breaks all day
Love
long.
that. It
Yeah.
is. You're
So,
performing sometimes, right?
yeah.
Yes.
So I did not, I mean, was I the perfect teacher right away or a perfect teacher education student? I'm sure there were more than a few rough spots getting used to being in front of people and talking, but I realized that I truly had a passion for it, and I was able to utilize that creative part of my brain that I wanted to put into writing and creating and journalism into a classroom. So I just really got passionate about what I had chosen for myself. I talked about in my TEDx talk a little bit about how I got my first classroom and that experience of whoops, they don't teach you what to do and you get handed a disaster classroom 10 days before the school year starts. And well, good luck with that. I got started teaching third grade, and then the following year I taught fourth grade. And then the following year I changed schools and I was teaching fifth grade. So I had my first 3 years of teaching. I thought I taught three different grades. If you are listening to this and you're discouraged that you've had to jump around a little bit to start out your career, it's not unheard of. And you do end up getting to that smooth sailing at some point. Sometimes it takes a
Yeah,
couple
but
years to
it
get.
sounds like it's still tough though, because then you're doing with different grades, that's whole different lesson planning.
I kept leveling up. It's like, well, you taught third grade last year. Now you're going to teach fourth grade. You taught fourth grade last year. Now you're going to teach fifth grade. So they did kind of build up on top of each other. But I stayed in fifth grade for 15 years. I really enjoyed that age group and the independence and with the things you could do with them. Now, are there some things about fifth grade I didn't enjoy? Like, that's, the onset of puberty and all the fun things that go along with that and the emotions that kids go through at that time, especially this end of the year. That's like the end of elementary school. And then the next stop is middle school. So they're the kings and queens of the hill and it's almost like senioritis. And they're ready to blast off out of there. But I did really enjoy fifth grade. But that was also towards the end of that, a time where I was going through teacher burnout. I had a lot of high points during my mid level of my career. I was the West Virginia Teacher of the Year in 2014, which was a great honor and opportunity to represent teachers in the United States and across the country at different events and conferences. That experience really shaped and changed my career. It was kind of like the confirmation to myself in a way that I had gotten beyond having anxiety attacks and being being in contention with that.
Mhm.
So there was it was a personal achievement for me as well as a career high point. But there were, I'm not perfect, and there were some things that I was dealing with behind the scenes as far as my habits and lack of boundaries as a teacher, where the cracks are really starting to show in my life. So about 10 years ago, things really started to fall apart. I was a person who did it all the time until it almost did me in.
Yes,
I like
person.
to put
Yes,
it.
I'll do that. I'll just say
Yeah.
yes to everything and help everyone and all that
Yes,
stuff.
and do all
Yeah.
the things and be very committed. And while that's good and we need people who are, committed to our students in our classrooms, there's also a balance that I did not have. And it really started to take its toll because I was not taking care of myself. And if you don't do that, if you don't honor your own needs as a teacher, you are going to face the consequences at some point. It may not happen right away. It happened to me about 13 years in, but it will happen. So, about 10 years ago, the train really started to fall off the tracks. I had trouble concentrating. I felt very disassociated from what I was doing. The littlest things that which should come as like second nature by that point, having taught that long, just seemed monumental. I felt like I couldn't get started, whether it was grading spelling tests or just getting things written on the board for the day, as everything just felt like it was going in slow
On
motion.
your shoulders. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was really ashamed to share what was going on with anyone. I thought, oh my gosh, I shouldn't, of all people, feel this way. This makes me a bad teacher, and I'm not living up to the hype, so to
Yeah.
speak. But that didn't make things better. Ignoring it and not facing the issues didn't make it go away. So it really got to a point by the spring, by about this time of the year, where the behavior from the kids is at its peak. And, if you're dealing with that and you're dealing with yourself, it's just a recipe for a disaster where I just cracked. And I talk about this in my book, Teachaholic, about social media and its role and how it puts forth this image of what we think we need to be or what we think is the epitome of being a good teacher. And I crashed and burned out. I just didn't want to be a teacher anymore. I didn't have any faith in my ability to be a good teacher. And I felt like there was no coming back from this, that I had disappointed myself and I was a disappointment to others. So that is where I hit rock bottom. What made me get back up was, well, I mean, I needed to have a job. I mean, there's always that. People say, I'm walking out of here, I'm done. Well, you need something. That doesn't mean it has to be in the classroom, but you need something. So I really, truly wanted to be in the classroom, and because I love teaching and I love working with my students. So that summer, I really did a lot of thinking about what I needed to be happy as a teacher and to take better care of myself. And I don't even think the words boundaries and burnout were even things that I said or were the things that I was even had in my vocabulary at that point. But I started thinking about things that way, like, okay, I need to not take work home so that I'm up doing that until 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. I need to leave that at school. And I was like, oh my gosh, can I do that? Is that even a thing? Do people just walk out of the school building without their heavy
What is this?
teacher bag with them?
Yeah.
So, and then there were other things too, like I need to, make sure that I'm getting enough to eat and drink during the day that's nourishing and not just junk that's fast. I
Mhm.
need to take that time to refuel and take care of myself, which that happens as teachers. We don't get a lot of time to eat or to take care of those basic needs to begin with. I mean, goodness, sometimes going to the bathroom is like a Olympic event. How long can you hold it? Or someone will come to
Yeah.
let you leave because we can't leave our kids unsupervised. So
Yeah.
we gotta, arrange for
Figure it
things like
out.
that
Hold it.
that you don't
Yep.
think about. Nobody else really thinks about when they think about teaching. These are the problems that we face. But it was also saying no and setting a limit on what I was going to do outside of school, because there's so many things that get added to our plate, like committees and after school activities
Right.
and other responsibilities that keep getting piled on. Is like setting a limit for how much I was willing to do. Like, where was the cutoff? Where did it start to feel too much? Or did it felt like I just couldn't be a good teacher and be a good human or be present for the other people in my life? It wasn't easy. It was not pretty. There were lots of falling up the stairs, as I like to call it, where I was making progress, but I would mess it up. And there were also some hard feelings because when people are used to you doing things a certain way or being available or just, oh, she'll say yes, or I'll just give it to her. She'll do it. You know,
Expectations, because you
yes.
set that bar so high. Yeah.
Yes. And
What
I'm
is
sure
this
that
new word Erin has discovered called
yes.
no?
Yes. And it did not come out eloquently or, it came out in a way that I'm sure people were just kind of taken aback because I wasn't used to sticking up for myself in that way. Now, 10 years later, I'm a little bit better at the the art of doing that, but then it was a little rough. But even though there were some snags, I'm glad that I kept persevering because on the other side of this, I've been able to continue in the classroom. I ended up teaching art or switching to art instead of fifth grade. I needed that change. I really found a way through coming back from burnout to honor the creative part of myself that I'd kind of ignored for a long time and ended up writing a children's book, which really got me interested again in creating and art. When the pandemic hit, a position at our school for the art teacher came open, and that has opened up a whole other world of teaching and viewing education that had I never had made those changes, I wouldn't have discovered. And that's been a huge blessing, not just in my life, but being able to enrich my students' lives through creativity and being able to incorporate art using my knowledge as a former third, fourth, and fifth grade teacher. So that leads
So
me to where I am
exciting.
today. And it also inspired the book Teachaholic, which came out in October. This is based on my experiences with teacher burnout and coming back from that and things that I wish I had when I was going through burnout 10 years ago and feeling alone and feeling defective. So it did really well back in October. And in a way, it's like, I'm glad it did well because it means I put something into the world that people needed. But in a way, it's sad that it even was needed because this is
People
such a
do need it.
huge
Yeah.
problem, teacher burnout and people feeling like they like the idea of being a teacher, but they don't know how much longer they can do it because of the expectations and the expectation that we are going to overwork ourselves to continue what we have done for years and years, and it's no longer sustainable.
It's wild. My brother is a custodian for elementary and secondary schools. He always calls me. He's like, these teachers, they're here till 8 or 9 at night. Consistently, he'll see the same ones. And
Yeah.
he's just like, what kind of lives do they have? Do they have families? What are they taking away from by putting in all of these extra hours? There's just so much burnout right now. In your TED talk, you mentioned that US schools in particular are quite understaffed. That's
Yes.
something I wanna say 40, 50% understaffed. I don't know if that's the correct
1 in 8
percentage, but
classrooms,
1 in
the
8.
equivalent of has an uncertified teacher or has an opening for a certified teacher that they cannot fill. And it's really becoming a crisis that's going to affect people worldwide because UNESCO reports that in about 5 years, we're gonna need 44 million teachers that currently don't exist. People are
Wow.
not flocking to the education profession for the reasons that I've kinda gone into as my from my own experience, and teaching is hard. Teaching has high expectations. We need teachers. We value teachers. Our society values teachers more than they let on, but they don't want to do what's needed to make it sustainable and a profession where people can support themselves and take care of themselves. People don't want to do the work for the teachers, but we definitely need the teachers to be with our children, to protect our children, to teach them and nurture them. But there is a disconnect there on different levels about, okay, we know what we need, but are we willing to do what we must do
The money
to
where our
make it
mouths
happen?
are,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
for
That
sure.
seems to be we just how bad does it have to be for you to really do something big to fix it? But,
Yeah.
you can't depend on other people to see the light. Sometimes you have to be the light and just start doing the things that you need to sustain yourself so that you can be whole. And kids need healthy, happy teachers. Because we spend so much time with these kids during the day. And, we are often the model adult. We're the adult that spends the most time with them. So they need to see people that are functioning in a healthy way, that are, not exhausted and sick. They need someone to model who they're going to be after. How can we do that if we are constantly on overload? And something has to give. And what has to give sometimes is we just start saying, this is unacceptable. Eventually, I think there is going to have to be a meeting of the minds where the people that are making the decisions in education will
Yeah.
have to change. But it's
This is
not
really
going to be
interesting.
easy.
And so what about in your book, Teachaholic? Are there any strategies that people are really resonating with and then incorporating into their own lives? Like, what are you noticing are the biggest impacts from your book?
There's an acronym that I use in the book for it's like mindset, and SET is the acronym. You look at what you have to do or what you expect of yourself to do. Because some of the expectations we put on ourselves about what teaching should look like and what good teaching is, S stands for, is this sustainable? Meaning, can you do this day after day, year after year, month after month? You have to take a moment and think, can I do this continuously? Can I do this when I'm not feeling well? Can I do this if I need to do something else in my personal life or need to attend to something else in my personal life? We have to start thinking about the word and it's sustainable in that aspect of it. Is it something that I'm going to be able to keep doing if something else comes up with the other expectations of the classroom? The E stands for, do I have the energy? And at different times of our life, we are going to have different amounts of energy based on what is going on in our age. I can tell you that my energy levels as a 44-year-old are much different than what they were 20 years ago.
Right.
Different seasons of our life are going to require different things of us. It's not a bad thing. It's just who we are. It's just we're human. We are not superheroes. That is something else that I think has really resonated with people. I talk about the think traps and Teachaholic, the things that have held us up from coming to this point where we recognize that burnout is an issue. We have this idea in our heads that teachers are superheroes that can do anything, through anything, with anything, or nothing. Sometimes it's nothing, next to nothing. But we're not. We are human beings. And if you don't have the energy for something, then we need to honor that. And then along with that is for the T is time. Do you honestly have the time? Because there are only so many hours in the day. And like you mentioned, we have families. We have people
Mhm.
in our lives besides our classrooms and our colleagues that need us too, that we've made commitments to or need to give our time and attention to. Do we honestly have the time for this on top of the other things that matter in our lives as well? And it's easy to misprioritize things based on what you want for yourself at different times of your life, but honoring who you are and what you need, you will have fewer regrets with that
I love
if you
that.
choose that.
Yeah. It makes me think about a time actually just recently last semester in the fall. I sustained a neck injury. I have one college where I work full-time faculty, and then I do a lot of sessional or adjunct work. So a lot of random courses for different universities. And it's a lot of work. I'm constantly delivering new courses. There isn't that consistency and ability to kind of relax and get into things. So
Mhm,
it's always a lot of work. And then in the fall, I sustained a neck injury and
mhm,
it just threw everything off. I think I was kind of barely hanging on a little bit in terms of burnout. 10 years of so many different courses was starting to add up. I was like that person, oh, Sally will take it. So last fall, I sustained a neck injury and I feel it really did just completely blow up my teaching. I struggled to get to work. I took a couple of classes off. And when I was there, I didn't want to be there. I was in pain and nothing was fun. And I wasn't myself, obviously. And I just couldn't bring myself to get to the marking. There was so much marking. Because I had a neck injury, it was giving me regular migraines. So it was just a mess. So I couldn't look at my computer. And I didn't know that I could ask for help. I talked to at the end of the semester, I talked to the chair. She's like, "You could ask for help. We would have helped you out. We'd have done covered some of your classes or all of these things." And it never occurred to me to ask for help. I thought I had to do this all on my own and kinda grind
yeah,
it out, but everything was a chore and that I feel like it kinda brought up a lot of feelings of just the burnout at that point regardless, and then I really had to think about what my next steps were. how am I feeling? Am I really that irritated by student requests for extensions or this or that? Like, it's just always something. And when you're
Mhm.
teaching that many classes, it becomes a lot. I guess I was going through a major burnout phase, and it prompted me to apply for some different type of things. So I work with faculty development now, and it's such a nice change, and after 10 years of teaching, I'm like, "Okay, this is where I'm meant to be at this point." Do I see myself going back to that level of teaching? Not necessarily, but maybe something I can sink my teeth into a little bit more, just not with all those different courses. It was a lot. You don't recognize it early on, do you? It's like it's
No.
like you're just
No.
at the absolute bottom and you're like, "I can't do this anymore." Yeah, the littlest of things that people are requesting that they have every right to request and talk about. I'm like, "Oh, not
A
another."
mental load of teaching is more than what people
Right?
realize, because it is
Yeah.
not just the physical wear and tear of being up and down and standing on concrete and, like, you're talking about just you know, the just supplies, even as an art teacher, like carrying
Yeah.
supplies or opening slabbing clay, that's muscles. But, people don't think about the many loads that teachers carry and how that just accumulates over time. And we do kind of feel like we have to carry it all, that there's
Yeah.
this myth that good teachers do it all, good teachers don't complain, when we should feel that we're able to ask for help or be able to give our 2 cents as to, "Hey, maybe this is too much. Is there a better way?" And I
Is there a
really
better
do
way?
think
Yeah.
there is a better way in certain aspects of the load that teachers carry. We just have to invest the time in it.
It really comes down to, as you said, us recognizing and being open with where we're at too, which can be difficult for people, I think, for admitting, "I'm struggling, I'm drowning a bit.
Yes.
How can we come together to help each other out?" That's that's a lot to ask of people sometimes.
It
And
is
people will
because so
just
many of
yeah.
us are drowning.
Yeah.
I think
Right?
many, especially in it's the day-to-day elementary or even secondary level, everybody is kinda this time of year treading water as we get
Yeah.
closer to the end of the school year, and it just feels like, sometimes there's the guilt of saying, "Hey, can you help me?" Because the person next to you is feeling the same way. It's all about just keeping your head above the water enough so you can make it to the last day of school and have something left for yourself.
Yeah. Also, I think, like, in post-secondary, at least, particularly with sessional people, we do our work and then we leave. We don't often interact on the faculty level. We don't have those sidebar conversations with other teachers.
Mhm,
We teach our class and then we go. We've got other jobs or what have you. So we're
hmm,
missing that, like, that connection and those conversations, because sometimes there's an easier way to do something or a faster way to do something that might be causing the burnout, but we're not having those conversations to even figure out what that could be or how other
mhm.
people are doing things, which is really interesting, which I struggled with. I'm like, I'm really fortunate now to be at a place where I have those connections, which I've found really, really helpful.
Yeah. For as interconnected we are with our students,
Yeah,
teaching can feel kind of isolating when it comes
it
to
is.
professional
Yes.
relationships because it's like we're all in a box. Not that I'm an advocate for the open classroom concept because that's a whole other level of crazy. We don't want to bring that
Oh,
back. But just, we do kind of, we're isolated from each other, which is one thing that's
mhm.
nice about being able to connect via the World Wide Web. We are able to have a voice and to speak to each other and let other teachers know that they're not alone in their thinking, that they're not weird or ineffective or we're all feeling this. This is a shared experience, even if you don't get to share it with people on a regular basis.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I wanna continue to grow here with the educator experience is really that community aspect. So if someone doesn't have that at their school, or maybe they're too introverted or they have anxiety and they don't prefer to connect with people outside, to be able to build that community so we can have those conversations. How are other people handling classroom management or AI in their classrooms and all these other types of things, like even just burnout, mental health? These are important topics that we should be talking about and coming together about. And I think sometimes we're not. So, yeah, that's one of the eventual goals is to really build that sense of community so that people know that they're not alone. I think it's really
Yeah,
important. Yeah, for
absolutely.
sure. I'd love to touch on your TED Talk if you're open to it a little bit. What
Sure.
was that
Yeah,
experience like for you? Because that just came out, right?
it did. It was March 29th.
Congratulations, first
Thank
of
you.
all.
It was it was not on my bingo card slash lesson plan for this school year. My book came out in October, and that was great and exciting, but it's almost like, you do something that's great and exciting and you're kinda like, "Well, now what?" It's
What's
like,
next?
"Now what?" And
Yes.
I happened to be just scrolling online one day or on my phone, and I came across a TEDx talk or a TED Talk, and I don't even remember what it was at this point, and I think I might have watched it for a few minutes, and I just thought to myself, how do people get to do these?" I started looking online. It's like, just Google was like, and I think I landed on something about TEDx locations near me, and I was surprised to see that, oh, there were actually TEDx talks in my area, and learned that, you apply for it, and, if you have an idea worth sharing, you apply for it. And as teachers, we're in a box, and we're in our school, and we don't really think about, oh, there's these other things out there. There's other ways to connect with people and have a voice. So I did some research and about how you write a TEDx, application. I ended up getting the TED Talks book that was written by the guy who came up or founded the TED program. And there's actually a very good program or training through TED Ed, the education part of TEDx, where it's a great training for teachers. Just learn about what it is, because there used to be TEDx education talks where it was just all teachers or just all education people that would talk at these events for just TEDx education. But now it's kind of farmed out, where if you have a talk about education, you just apply to the same places as everybody else, because more than just
It's
teachers need to
applicable
hear
to
about
everyone.
education. Yeah.
Right.
So that was very helpful. The online TED public speaking course taught me a lot, which I think is just on YouTube. There was like a portal for it on the TED Ed website as well. But I did all that. So I did my homework like a good teacher.
Of course. Your research. Yep.
The first 2 that I applied to, I did not get, which it's okay. Rejection teaches us things. I learned a
Mhm.
little bit more each time I did it. And in the third one that I applied to, which was actually the one that I felt this almost like was most in alignment with what I wanted to say in the theme, because most of the TEDx talks or TEDx events have a theme, just like everything aligned. It was just almost like it was meant to be. Even the logo or the symbol for the event this year at TEDxWVU was a pencil, and I'm an art teacher, and I'm a color pencil artist. When I illustrated my children's books, it was all colored pencils. It was like, I mean, tell me about a sign, there's a sign.
Yes, yes, yes. The universe
So,
aligned. Yeah.
it was a great learning experience, and it was also just something unrelated to the classroom that I could put some attention to and had to structure some time for after school, because, I had to memorize the speech and had to get the slides, in sync with what I was gonna say. So that was good for me, because it had been a while since I had been on a stage like that. Then March rolled around and did the rehearsal. I had a control alt delete moment during rehearsal where I got up on the stage, they had all my stuff queued up, ready to go. Okay, practice your speech. And I just like forgot everything. It was like
No.
it was like two and a
Oh
half
my
months of
god.
prep. It was like pop out the window. But after looking at everything, I was fine. It was just like an OMG, this is really happening. There's the big red letters behind me. Yeah, it was just a glitch. And after practicing it 3 more times, I was back to normal.
Quick, a little
I will
glitch in the
never forget
matrix.
standing there on that dot, seeing my slides queued up, and it's like, what do I say? What I do is like a dream. It's like, huh?
You're like, uh-oh. Yeah.
I was fine the following day for the actual event. I was very calm and I was ready to roll and everything clicked and I felt very, very good about how it went. But yeah, that was very humbling, like just to be there and just boom.
I can
What?
imagine.
Huh? What am I doing up here? No clue. But I was very proud to be there as a teacher and to represent what's going on in education right now. And to also, through sharing my experiences, just kind of destigmatize feeling burnout and feeling like you can't ever be enough. That, there's somebody else out there that feels exactly like you, and I've got ideas for how we can solve it. We just need to listen to the teachers, and we might be surprised what we come up with.
You are having a banger of a year then.
Yeah,
A book,
it's
TEDx,
been, but you know what?
yes.
Life is like that. Some years are good, and some years have been really not that great. But it's those really not great years that have brought me to this point because and this is something I talk about in my book. Like I've made a lot of progress with burnout and setting boundaries, but a year and a half ago, I was on my back in the art room on the filthy concrete floor after having a medical event. And it was one of the scariest moments of my life. Ended up in the emergency room, and it was scary and humiliating, even though I shouldn't have been humiliated. Everybody said, don't be upset about it. Don't be upset. These things happen. People pass out all the time." It's like, yeah, they do. Well, where are they? Because I'm the only one I see on this floor right now. There have been some really low moments, as in low on the floor and, bleeding from the chin and all that good stuff. But I've learned from all the, or I've been able to take those experiences and turn them into something that will help someone else. And there are lots of teachers out there. I'm not the unicorn here, that have experiences and have ideas and have a way that they could probably relate their life story or their story of how they have dealt with the many different aspects of being a classroom teacher over the years. We just need to hear them and we need to give them a place to share it. So
Right.
so I'm happy that the good things are here and the good things have happened, but I also recognize that there were a lot of not so great things that helped me get to this point as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's why I love this podcast in particular, because it's not like about a teaching tip or trick. I want to get to know you. I want to know
Yeah.
about educators as people and highlight the challenges, the things that we've overcome, successes, and just all of these things that we don't often get a chance to talk about in our daily lives. So I'm
Yeah.
so excited, Erin. Like, thank you. What an incredible story and journey that you've been on and continue to be on, and how you've impacted so many people with sharing that so openly. So what's next for you? I'm curious.
What is next? Well,
What is next? That dreaded question.
I have a podcast myself, the Next Chapter for Teachers podcast that I started it during the pandemic because I felt so cut off from everyone. And that was honestly kind of the backtrack here. That was honestly when I really started thinking about sharing about burnout and just the things that teachers go through because I thought, there's lots of things that nobody talks about. They'll give us a professional development on reading strategies,
Right? But not
on
taking care of
repeat.
ourselves.
Yeah, but then nobody ever talks about what's happening to us or what all this
Right.
does to us. So I have the Next Chapter for Teachers podcast that I'm currently doing. I've been doing it very consistently. Lately, we're on season 6, 5 or 6 now, because it's not I'm
Congratulations.
a
That's
full-time
awesome.
classroom teacher still. It is a balancing act. There are things that I am feeling pulled and called to, but I am also still gainfully employed as an art teacher, and the art show is in 2 weeks, and my life is being held together by a hot glue gun and heavy duty masking tape at this point. So there's that. But I also have started a YouTube channel. I've written 2 children's books. I'd like to write more, but I really like the way that the book connected with people or has made people realize that they're not alone. And there are so many other topics in teaching and education where people who are thinking, am I the only one? Or what am I doing wrong? Or am I just wrong? Is everything I do wrong? There's so many more things that could be shared. And I've got so many other stories to
Yeah,
enlighten
what
people with.
23 years of teaching, that's a
I
lot of stories that have
yeah.
accumulated, I'm sure.
So
Mhm.
there are things coming, and like I said, it's been a long road here, but I feel like I'm at the point in my career, almost a quarter of a century in, which is unbelievable. We're meant to do have different things or feel pulled to different things based on the season of our lives, and I feel like I'm in a place where it's time to really share and branch out and see if I can use what I've accumulated over the years, my knowledge, and I feel kinda like a fraud saying wisdom, but, wisdom, I got some wisdom, I guess, at this point. Definitely have the wisdom hairs.
I just
Uh,
dyed mine recently. Trying to hide the wisdom hair.
this is just the time to start sharing and branching out, just, you know, let's see what happens. That's kind of where I'm at right now. Let's see what happens if we do this too. Because teaching, like you said, we're talking about the isolation, but it's like there's not very many ways out or up. It's like, do you want to be a classroom teacher or do you want to be an administrator? It's like
Mhm.
there's like all these, it's like you're gonna go from one box to the other, but we don't really think about how you can branch out and be a teacher, but not in the traditional aspect of a classroom. So we'll see where this
Interesting.
goes.
I
Really
love
does.
this. Congratulations. You have so many cool things happening. So, Erin, as we start to wind down the conversation, then I have a question for you. And after your almost quarter of a century of teaching experience and wisdom, what would you say is a piece of advice that you might have for a new educator coming into a classroom?
I would say love yourself first because as a new teacher, especially if you're a new young teacher, you are dealing with a lot of feelings from your experience as a teenager and from your childhood. And sometimes we go into teaching and we are still fixing ourselves on the inside. In fact, a lot of us are fixing ourselves on the inside our entire lives.
Hmm.
And you're about to step into the lives of a lot of little people and their families, and you become intertwined with, their stories as well. But you have to love yourself first or work on that self-love and taking care of your own needs while you are developing this career that is going to be very much focused on humanity and improving the lives of other people. With especially with social media, I mean, thank goodness we had, when I started teaching, we had Pinterest. That was the big thing, but Pinterest didn't take selfies. It was it was a little bit more contained than what social media has been common. New teachers, young teachers, they're bombarded with this image of what good teaching looks like or is filtered out to be. And you have to put down the phone and focus on what you need and what will keep you healthy, happy, and whole. And if
I
you can
love
do
that.
that, love yourself, you will do more to increase your longevity in the teaching profession than any other type of PD ever will.
I love that. That's so wonderful. Thank you so much again for joining, Erin. And I'm so
Thank you for
excited
having
to
me.
see what's next in all the fabulousness. And I'm going to check out Teachaholic. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Educator Experience. We hope you're walking away feeling connected, inspired, and just a little bit more supported on your journey. Ready to go a little bit deeper? Join the Educator Experiences community and check out our courses and workshops specifically designed to support new educators as they navigate the ups, downs, and everything in between. You'll find it all at educatorexperiences.com. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with a fellow educator and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Together, we're building a vibrant community rooted in support and connection. See y'all next Monday.